am having, Mac.
I've made videos in the past talking about Sonic the Hedgehog's eyelids, his shoes. The only logical thing to talk about next is his cool mouth. It's his mouth. Unlike the videos I just mentioned, this one is definitely going to have a lot less structure because there's no underlying question or overlying question we're trying to answer. Here, it's literally just going to be a video talking about Sonic the Hedgehog's mouth. But what specifically about Sonic the Hedgehog's mouth? It's just a mouth. Well, no, it actually isn't. To the average Sonic fan, you might think that Sonic's mouth is just, your regular Sonic the Hedgehog mouth. There's nothing crazy to talk about here. But there actually is quite a lot that could be dissected in his character design. This design analysis is not only exclusive to Sonic the Hedgehog either, as Shadow the Hedgehog, Silver, and many other characters also have a similar mouth structure. But before we dive into the nitty-gritty, I want to talk about the mouth to its entirety. Now, the specific feature of Sonic the Hedgehog's mouth is not going to be just a little line that you see here, it's also going to be this little tan area as well, and the same goes for the other characters that I may mention in the video. Okay, moving on. So when you draw Sonic the Hedgehog, how do you normally draw his mouth? Let's say you draw him in a face-forward direction. Where do you put the mouth? Do you put it in the middle, or maybe off to the side? You see, that is the big topic in today's video. Sonic the Hedgehog's mouth is actually wildly inconsistent. Sometimes it's in the middle, sometimes it's off to the side, and sometimes there's two of them. Yeah. You see, there's really no definitive answer as to why Sonic's mouth often is changing in such interesting ways, but the only real conclusion I think we can all come to is that it's all about camera angles. You see, the reason why sometimes Sonic may have two mouths is because, depending on what perspective you're looking at, you may not be able to see Sonic to his entirety. So Sonic Lost World had two mouths for Sonic. And so did this float from the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade from many years ago. Yeah, it looks good from the side, but if you look at it down from the front, you can see there's a glaring problem. And this goes for both the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade and the Sonic Lost World picture you see here. You see, Sonic having two mouths is something that doesn't happen very much, if at all anymore, but it still does happen, and it was worth talking about in this video. That said, if you do not get two mouths for Sonic, you'll get one of the other, either middle mouth or side mouth. And again, this is all about camera angles. In most cases, Sonic having a side mouth is done in the art. You don't see any real 2D official artwork of Sonic the Hedgehog having a middle mouth, and if you do, there isn't a whole lot of it. And there's a pretty obvious reason for that, I believe. You see, if we look at this picture of Sonic and put a middle mouth in this one, you see how weird it looks? Sonic is not really... Yeah, I can't even describe this. It's just weird. And don't get the wrong idea, that's not to say middle mouth Sonic is bad, because if we look at movie Sonic, for example, and do the exact same thing but in reverse and put the side mouth on movie Sonic, it looks just as weird. In certain pictures, it may look kinda cool, but if we were to look at this for the entire movie and see it in action, there'd be certain scenes where we wouldn't even see Sonic's mouth at all but hear him talking. You know how weird that is? But even then, there is a somewhat adequate solution where you can have Sonic's mouth kind of move depending on where the camera is facing and make it look kind of natural, as this has been done before in previous Sonic games. But even if movie Sonic were to have a side mouth, it wouldn't exactly change the overall odd pattern of mouth placement that Sonic seems to have in games, movies, and TV shows. This strange inconsistency started much discourse among the Sonic the Hedgehog community, debating on which was better, middle mouth or side mouth Sonic. And like I said, there are other characters in this franchise who also have the same dilemma, like Amy Rose, Shadow, Silver, but characters like Tails are kind of always having a middle mouth. Even dating back to some of the earliest Sonic the Hedgehog artwork with Tails in it, it showcases Tails having a middle mouth. Yes, there are times where Tails does have a side mouth, but I think more often than not, you'll see middle mouth. And in the rare occurrences where Tails does have a side mouth, it's often because he's doing a grin or a face of that variety. But as far as in-game cutscenes and models, Tails always seems to have a middle mouth. Sonic is always changing, and same thing goes for Shadow and Silver and many other characters in this universe. Most recently, we got Sonic Prime, and I feel like this show is doing something unlike any other Sonic media I've seen before. Sonic is not only having a middle mouth, but also a side mouth. Sonic's mouth is changing depending on what direction the camera is going, and is not afraid to shy away from doing middle mouth activity. You see, the reason this is so fascinating to me is because oftentimes the Sonic the Hedgehog model remains committed to what it's supposed to do. If it's going to do middle mouth, it's going to stay middle mouth. If it's going to do side mouth, it's going to stay side mouth. But with this, it's doing both. And might I add, so far from what I've seen, it's doing it very well. Each movement the mouth seems to make feels natural and smooth, and I think I like it so much for that reason. Switching gears here, let's talk about that little tan part that's connected to Sonic's mouth. Now this part's interesting. I'm not really sure what this part of Sonic's body is called. I mean, it does have the exact same tan shade as his chest and his arms, so maybe it's like his skin or something. But with that in mind, this part is also kind of inconsistent as well. What I basically mean is sometimes this little tan part of Sonic's mouth kind of curves into the eyes, making them flow very nicely together. However, this tan part of Sonic's mouth sometimes is actually not connected to this little eye part, as the two of them don't curve into each other. I want to say that this inconsistency is rather new because for years I don't feel like this has been happening. They've always seemed to just curve nicely into each other, but now sometimes you see Sonic having eyes that don't curve into the mouth, and it's a little strange, but you really hardly notice it. You see, when it comes to Sonic the Hedgehog's mouth, I've always been someone who preferred the side mouth for Sonic. That said, I do acknowledge the fact that there are some instances where side mouth for Sonic just doesn't work as well as middle mouth would, but I think Prime has done an excellent job in kind of merging the two together and making it all work cohesively. That said, do you prefer side mouth or middle mouth for Sonic the Hedgehog? Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section down below. I'd love to see what you guys have to say. Thank you all again so much for watching. This is Sonic signing out. Have a super blessed day, y'all.
Why are you playing that trash?